And joining me now is Democratic Congressman Joaquin Castro from Texas. Congressman, it's just heartbreaking. We just saw that family that Tom interviewed from Venezuela saying they'll wait to get processed for as long as it takes. And it's going to take a lot longer now to determine who can stay, who can go. Is the Biden administration prepared to deal with this backlog?
I think that they're taking every step they can to prepare. This humanitarian crisis has been made worse, though, by the fact that Title 42 has stayed in place so long. So you have a backlog of people who've been in Mexico and who have been subjected to the violence of very dangerous cartels there and often been the victims of crime because they've not been allowed to be in the United States while they wait to have their asylum claims heard in court. And so there will be, of course, more folks after May 11th. The Biden administration is working hard to handle it in a sane and efficient way. But the administration is also getting no help from the Republican House of Representatives, who often, the leaders like to demagogue about immigration, to demonize immigrants, talk about an invasion and aliens and so forth, but really put no reasonable plan forward to deal with any of this. In fact, Andrea, last year, when many of us voted for billions of dollars to address asylum and also border security, 96% of Republicans right here in this Congress, in the House, voted no. They voted against it.
And NBC is reporting that the Biden administration is going to instruct Customs and Border Protection to begin releasing migrants into the country without court dates, and they wouldn't have any ability to keep tabs on them as they move around the country, according to 3 sources inside DHS. Is that a solution?
I had not seen those reports. We know that the overwhelming majority of folks who receive a court date to return for their asylum claims actually show up in court, despite what really hard right and conservatives say. And so, like I said, I think most Americans, they want to be humane. They want to be compassionate to people that are fleeing dangerous situations, but they also want an efficient and effective system of processing people. And I think that whether we're Republican or Democrat, that's what we should be working toward.
Meanwhile, in Long Island, your colleague, Republican colleague, George Santos, has been charged in a 13-count indictment, including fraud and money laundering. He's going to have his hearing at about 1:30 Eastern. Should he resign? The Speaker is standing by him.
Yeah, George Santos absolutely should resign. I think the country followed what has been a very bizarre case of a man who made up what seems like 90% of his biography to fake his way into Congress, and along the way it looks like he committed crimes. So there's no place in Congress for George Santos. He should leave.
I also, of course, want to ask you about the shooting, the horrific shooting in Texas, another mass shooting at that mall in Allen, Texas, near Dallas. The president's calling on Congress to pass the assault weapons ban. He knows he doesn't have the votes. And Governor Abbott down there says that the long-term solution is mental health. So what do you as a member of Congress do?
Well, first, when you talk about Greg Abbott, you have to understand Greg Abbott has made it easier to kill and be killed in Texas. He has made Texas more dangerous for all Texans. And people like Greg Abbott and others will often talk about increasing mental health, and they try to pit the issue of mental health against the issue of gun reform. And I actually think that as Democrats, we don't have to let them force us to choose between those two things. We can increase funding for mental health and at the same time do something to curb assault weapons, to take these dangerous weapons off the street. And so I wish that Greg Abbott would do something more for mental health. He's cut mental health funding in Texas over the years, and at the same time has made Texas more dangerous for everybody.
Congressman Joaquin Castro, thank you so much.